Mailbag time. What are you going to bring us?
Will Nebraska be able to establish a better running back run game under Rule like we haven't seen recently?
I think the big element is the running quarterback and the threat of Jeff Sims being a runner. It just adds another layer of what you have to prepare for, which helps the running back, where I felt like the run game under Mark Whipple was very predictable. There wasn't a lot of design to it.
I guess. I mean, I think when I think of a run game, though, I don't think of the quarterback running. I think of a run game where you can the quarterback can hand off, and you can get yards from your running backs when you need them. And when you're looking to salt away a game, it's not let's put it on Adrian Martinez. No, let's put it on a running back or running back.
But just the element of Sims running helps the running backs. That's what I'm sure.
For sure. I agree with that.
I also think the depth in that room will help to where it's not all going to be on one guy like it was last year, where Anthony Grant was the only running back run game Nebraska had. And by the end of the year, he was worn down.
What if you have that guy, though?
Do they have that guy?
What if you have the guy at Illinois
I don't know if they have
Chase Brown.
25, 30 carry.
I don't either, but if you have that guy.
Yeah, if you have Chase Brown or Mo Ibrahim, then yeah, sure, you ride him, but Nebraska doesn't.
There are less than 10 of those guys in college football.
Now, if you give Grant and Irvin, 10 to 15 carries a game each, then I think you got a pretty good deal there.
You know what Nebraska has that maybe the best answer to this question is? They have a fullback. They're running a fullback. They're running the I formation. Abby, I think that's the best answer. Yeah, I think they will improve. They're running a fullback. They're running out of the I, and Bonner can do it.
Well, and
Janire and Bonner.
He did hint, though, that Braden Clover from Wymore, who are our good friend in Beatrice Husker Lunch, is connected to. He was actually more of the lead blocking fullback they would use, but Bonner really surprised them in the spring game, showing that he can do it too. So I like that picture of Bonner
and Clover
because, having Bonner even lead block, because then it throws the defense off because you don't know for sure when Bonner's only in for pass plays. It's a little bit easier to prepare.
You have to account for him just as much as a receiver as you do a lead block fullback. So, I mean, there's a lot of versatility there. But I remember on Monday, Rule mentioned that too, where Janarian hadn't done a lot of lead blocking in all spring, but just out of necessity because of the limited numbers in the spring game, he had to do some of that, and they were really impressed with. So I think going forward, maybe that becomes more of something that is on Bonner's plate than it was through the spring.
And you know what else about Bonner? He can run it.
Yes, he can.
He's a threat. He's a threat at fullback.
Tough.
Tough. Yeah.
All right, next one. Will we see packages of Heinrich Harburg this season, and what are the odds of them putting Jeff Sims and Harburg on the field at the same time?
It's really hard to say because I think it could be week to week. I mean, strategy changes, but you have to think week 1, Thursday night, Minneapolis, Minnesota, they're going to come out with some wrinkles that Minnesota's just not going to know what they are. And that Nebraska's going to go into that game. What's the early number? 8? They're already 9-point dogs.
Yeah. I think the last I saw was 8.
So they've got to figure out a way early to take advantage of the unknowns and get Minnesota off guard in that first game because there's zero to prep for on the new personnel of Nebraska.
It's true.
I don't see the need to do that, really. I mean, like, sure, maybe like a play or two here with like lining up Harburg in a special package because you already got that offense. You already got that guy in Sims. You got a 6'4", 220-pound running quarterback. Like, why do you need to bring in another guy for that?
I'm a snob.
That's not as experienced.
Okay, I'm a snob. I am. I like Nebraska. I am when it comes to this stuff. I'd like Nebraska to get back to where we don't talk about bringing in guys for pack.
Mm-hmm.
Does CJ Stroud? Does Ohio State do that? They bring in some package for CJ Stroud's backup? I don't think so. Now they did it back when they had that Miller, that really good run,
Braxton
Miller. But does Alabama? I mean, are there media talking about? Hey, maybe they bring the backup in for a package. I don't know. I know it's apples and oranges.
Like if Sims were like an immobile pocket guy, sure, I could see it. But like he's probably a better runner, more proven runner than Harburg.
That's Arena Ball League stuff. I just prefer that.
When Nebraska was really good, teams would try to do that to them, and they would just smother it. It would be like they'd come out with some gimmicky.
I know what happens. Listen, I know what happens. I watch football like you guys. I know what stuff happens. I just prefer you don't do it.
Okay, next question. Name 3 top-level recruits that Nebraska has a real shot at getting.
Gatlin Bear, Brandon Baker. I mean, those are
two good ones.
Those are two, and Carter Nelson. I think those are three that I'd go with right now. I mean, there's more, but they're in the final 5 for Gatlin Bear. Brandon Baker's coming back for another visit. I would like to think Nate Frazier will too. I don't know that though. I mean, Nate Frazier he's now the number 1 ranked running back in the country on 3. And he's just going to keep getting more and more attention when he's got Georgia on his list and other teams like that, Alabama. So that will be hard. It'll be interesting then get Nate Frazier back, but they're going to get Gatlin Bear back. They're going to get Brandon Baker back. And we know Carter Nelson will be back again.
I mean, the fact that that's a realistic list and not just a wish list is pretty remarkable. I mean, you're talking about like elite level players that are firmly on the radar and within the realm of possibility. That's credit to Matt Rule and the staff for the work they've done.
And there's some people that kind of scoff or chuckle that you'd even consider like Brandon Baker, but he's legitimately interested in Nebraska. I think there's just this, beat down effect of what the last few years have been as a Nebraska fan that you feel like you're just being played by some of these guys, that they're just, using this as leverage, whether it's for NIL or social media attention or whatever the reasons are. But we have spent as much time with Brandon Baker as anybody in the state of Nebraska, other than the coaches. And
it's genuine. Yeah. I mean, his interest is genuine.
I've ate dinner with him 3 times since when he's come here. I've had interviews with him 2 times. So I've been around him enough to know that the interest is genuine.
He asks you questions that he would not ask if he was just going through the motion.
He's curious.
Yeah.
But can they show him enough to want to come here? And I look at the players for Brandon Baker right now as Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon. I think those are the 4 players with Nebraska. USC is out of it from my read. UCLA out of it. Those are the teams. Colorado maybe even to an extent, but it's going to take a lot for me to believe in Colorado that they're going to really, really get it going.
Yeah.
What do you got?
All right. What are your thoughts on Nebraska's baseball team, and what do you think will happen at the end of the year?
I think that Will's team isn't reflective of Will. Will, as you guys remember, Rob is old enough, Sean's certainly old enough to remember Will as a player was a tough, gritty, no back down. And that's
Van Horn.
And he was, I think he was Dave's first recruit. So I think that's right. And he was like Van Horn, and Van Horn was like that. Van Horn's a gunslinger. Van Horn's a guy you wouldn't want to tangle with. He's that guy. I don't think his team reflects that. And that's probably the first thing I'd say from a sort of a 30,000 foot view.
This is a whole nother generational conversation, but it's hard to find guys like that now.
Is it? Yeah.
I mean, just tough bunker dudes.
Right. Yeah.
That want to get down and dirty and fight. There aren't that many. I mean, it's just not.
They're an odd team. Nebraska's an odd team because they have 2 superstars.
They have 2 all-American level players.
2 superstars.
This is like getting in the weeds a little bit to your point, Sean. I saw something on, I don't know, it was TikTok or Instagram or something. It was a baseball coach talking about like recruits and like players these days. And he's like, look at the major leagues. Look at the demographics of where guys are coming from in the major leagues. They're not coming from suburban select teams. They're coming
overseas.
They're coming from dirt fields and Puerto Rico, and that's where that grit mentality, I think as far as like recruiting, like that's something that is a real thing. Like the players in the United States,
fascinating.
That's the way the youth model is going. It's like becoming a different game than it was even when Will Bolt was coming up.
Well, I would go to the NBA too. Look at the demographics in the NBA, who the best players are. I would ask you this. I'm just going to ask you this question. I'm going to leave it at who are the best American white players? I mean, they're Tyler Hero. Okay.
Dude from the Lakers.
Yeah, good. He's second probably. Reeves. Yeah. Okay, now that's probably the 100th best player in the NBA. Okay. 105th best, 110th best player in the NBA. But the baseball things, that's fascinating what you just said.
And you have to be careful because, a lot of people that listen and they have kids, they put a lot of money into select sports and travel.
I get it.
But baseball's baseball. Watch a game and what Rob said, you'll see it. It's right.
There aren't my words. It was from an actual college baseball coach, and I'm sure I could find it somewhere. But
I saw the same TikTok you're talking about. That just the youth model in general is not developing pros like maybe the grassroots model. I mean, I look at good example. Our friend Jim Rose from KFAB and former Husker play-by-play guy, he kept his kid as a rec baseball player all the way through 8th grade. And he goes to Westside, and he could throw as hard as anybody on that team, but didn't play in these select models. Never really kind of got the benefit of the doubt, the tiebreakers. He was the 5th starter for that.
Fifth starter in the rotation.
He's now in AAA. He had to go JUCO. Then he went to Minnesota, won a Big Ten title, got drafted by the Marlins. He's now in AAA. Will probably have a pretty good chance to be on the Marlins roster this year. Didn't play an ounce of heavy select ball because Jim did not believe in it. He said, you overthrow these kids, you burn them out, you want them to still have fun doing it. So I think there is some, when you talk about baseball in general, but it's so hard because if your kid is good, everybody wants him. And it's addicting. As a parent, you're like, this is cool. Like, people want my kid on their team.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to make. For instance, if you're trying out for Lincoln Southeast basketball team, if you're not in a select summer program, you don't really have a prayer.
You just can't walk in there.
No, it's hard.
They know who the guys are. Jackson Rose is an anomaly. You don't see that very often. A kid that grew up suburb to an extent of Omaha, didn't play any select. He's now going to be in the majors.
He's on the cusp of the major leagues.
All right, final question.
What is your favorite Sean Callahan analogy?
Oh, God.
This is a big one.
This is a big one.
I don't even get to answer my own question.
Rob.
I could just think of the new ones. Like, this was a chat question, I remember. Gosh, there's been so many good ones. Didn't you have like a horse racing one? I can't remember what it was. But like the airplane one, like,
the airline tickets.
Yeah, the airline tickets,
flight.
like if oversold flight.
What is that?
Well, Matt Rule had an oversold flight. He had a flight with 85 seats in it, and he had 100 tickets sold. He had to get 15 passengers off the plane.
Plane's not leaving.
Some guys booked new flights. Other guys took the free tickets.
Some guys went to the airport bar. And
there's all kinds of recruiting analogies that involve dating.
Yeah. The bar scene is a go-to.
Yeah, the bar scene. Give us that one, Sean.
The one I shared in the chat this week was a lot of Nebraska's recruiting classes were like Las Vegas shotgun weddings. I mean, you found a girl, got married in a weekend, but then 3 or 4 months later when they got here, you learned about all their problems. And then how do you build a program on that?
How do you build a marriage?
How do you build them? But I'm saying for Nebraska football, they've had a scurry and scramble.
No, you're right,
with
Sean.
roster building.
Yeah, I've long believed that. I used to tell Sean on our private talks, like he'd always use an analogy. I was like, why don't you take those to the air? Those are really good. Those are really good. They're entertaining.
Spontaneous too. Yeah. That's what always catches me up.
I've never heard anybody use as many as analogies as Sean. Just in private conversation, he's really good at it.
I have a weird gift for movies, like to bring them in.
Yeah, he can reference pretty much any situation in life to some like late 80s, early 90s action.
We relive a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm scenes too.
Larry David, yep.
Oh God,
go to
some like
highly inappropriate show, by the way.
We saw a guy in the Dublin airport. Remember this? We were leaving Dublin, and he was wearing like not just a mask,
easy Sean,
like a full space helmet.
Right. He was being cautious. Sean, he was being cautious.
I'm just like, can you imagine like if Larry David and him were like encountered?
What do you do? What do you? We go scuba diving.
Any other questions?
I go
skiing later.
I think I'm on the wrong flight. This guy's going to space. Where are we going?